On 26th of April of 2019, the Supreme Court of India has ruled that the Reserve Bank of India was duty-bound to disclose the list of information related to willful defaulters. The top court took a very serious view of non-disclosure of this information by the central bank and said that any further violation would invite contempt of court proceedings. Now, Girish Mittal and Subhash Chandra Agarwal, the RTI activist who had moved the top court for contempt action against the RBI, not complying with the court's direction to disclose information under the Right of Information Act. The petitioners had further claimed that the Reserve Bank of India and its former governor Urjit Patel had willfully and deliberately disobeyed the top court's judgment asking the central bank to disclose information under the RTI Act. And one of the contempt petition filed by Girish Mittal had also said that the RBI refused to provide the information sought about the inspection report of some banks. Now, it is becoming a trend in our country where it seems like the top banking institutions are not very keen to disclose information. And this time it was the State Bank of India who has refused to disclose communication it got from the government or from the Reserve Bank of India on electoral bonds. The bank has said that the information was personal and held it fiduciary capacity, to which the SBI turned down the RTI application filed by a Pune-based activist Vihar Durve, who had sought for copies of letters, correspondence, directions, notifications or emails received by the RBI or any government departments between 2017 and 2019. Now, the bank had also refused to give any details of action taken by it or on such communication from the RBI and the central government. The SBI has exclusive rights to sell electoral bonds, which are used to give donations to political parties anonymously. Now, according to the RTI activist Vihar Durve, he exclusively told us that he has been following this since 2011. He said that the SBI had refused to show the electoral bonds, which is completely against the law and its constitution. And the bill is totally illegal. Now, Mr. Durve had further said that there is a possibility that the share companies might have increased their corruption level too.
And State Bank has refused information under section 81E and 81J. Basically, it talks about the fiduciary relationship and there is no public interest involved in that. This is totally fraud and excuse given by the SBI is totally wrong, unconstitutional and basically why am I filing that this RTI has been filed before on behalf of 130 crore PCS and money bill which was presented by the Modi government relating to electoral bonds is totally fraud and we as a citizen demand that the donor's name should be published on the website. Otherwise, EC has also raised the concerns stating that there would be increase in the corruption and through the shell companies, and we demand that the donor's name be published on the website.
Now, the Supreme Court on the month of April of this year refused to stay the usage of electoral bonds for political donation, but said that all parties must reveal the details of the Election Commission to the Election Commission in a sealed cover by May 30th. So, what are the electoral bonds? The central government had on January 29th of 2018 notified that the electoral bond scheme, which is like a promissory note that can be brought by any Indian citizen or company incorporated in India from the selected branch of SBI. The citizen can then donate the same to an eligible political party of his or her choice. Now, who can receive these electoral bonds? Issued in a multiple values of rupees 1,000 to 10,000 to 1 lakh to 10 lakh and then 1 crore. These bonds can only be enchased by political parties which had secured at least 1% of the votes polled in the most recent Lok Sabha or the State Assembly. Now, the money received from the electoral bonds will be deposited in a bank account verified by the Election Commission. Now, all these transactions for electoral bond can be done only through that account. So, there are also controversies around these electoral bonds, to which our finance and editor Akhilesh Bhargav will tell you.
There is a growing tendency in India that the authorities are denying replies to the RTI queries. You will recall that Reserve Bank of India has been consistently refusing to give information to an RTI activist who's seeking information about willful defaulters in India. That sounds pretty simple, but for strange reasons, not only has Reserve Bank not given that information for the past 2-3 years, and it has led to a situation where the Supreme Court has ordered the Reserve Bank to give the information and said that if you don't do, you are going to be held guilty of contempt of court. And till this date, that information has not been parted with by the RBI. The State Bank of India seems to be on a similar path. An RTI activist has asked for information about sale of electoral bonds. He just wants the details of who are the persons who bought it. And State Bank of India has refused to give that information. To us, refusing to give information actually indicates that something behind it is being hidden and not being told to us. Otherwise, electoral bonds came with the mandate of improving transparency in electoral funding. It was meant to come as a cleanup of electoral funding. Where is the reason for SBI to deny such information? It probably confirms what we think, that electoral bonds did not bring the kind of transparency and cleanup in the election funding which was promised. It still prefers to conceal information of who the persons were who had donated money to the various political parties. Interestingly, the fact is that in this election, most of the money through electoral bonds has gone to the Bharatiya Janata Party. Is that the kind of information that is sought to be hidden? Becomes a big question, especially when SBI refuses to part with information related to the electoral bonds. While Arun Jaitley has introduced electoral bonds in India, hoping that it becomes the most popular medium of funding of elections in the country, and while the fact also is that some kind of a cleanup is needed in funding of elections, because otherwise the fact is that a lot of cash is used for this purpose. Unaccounted black money is one of the most popular mediums of funding elections. But will electoral bonds be the substitute for it remains a question mark. In this particular election, electoral bonds did not really gain that much of traction that was expected. It did not become the most popular vehicle of funding elections. So whether the entire scheme needs to be reviewed and relooked and it needs to be changed in order to succeed in making it a popular medium and bringing it transparency and a cleanup in the election funding mechanism remains a question mark. We think that the entire scheme will need a review because the 2019 elections were a test case and it did not turn out to be a very popular mode of funding elections.
Now, meanwhile, in the month of February of this year, India's largest bank, the State Bank of India, found itself in the midst of data leak controversy. The data leak occurred at a bank's server in Mumbai, which was more due to carelessness than a work of some devious mind. Now, according to a report of TechCrunch, the bank had also exposed financial information of its customers through an unprotected server. The exposed data contained partial account numbers, balances, transaction details, and many more. And now this, refusing to disclose the information on electoral bonds. So is the State Bank of India in some sort of grave danger? Do let us know what you think in the comment box below. For more news updates, log on to www.hwnews.in. Now be the first to know about the latest updates on our new news app. Go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.
नमस्कार, HW News Network today is a year and a half old. Thanks to your support, thanks to your love, we've grown. We require your support a little more. What we request you to do is to download our free app. Our app is in English, Hindi and Marathi. We promise to update you with the latest news, views, analysis, interview. We also have a live TV going in that. If you download our app, we will get advertisers. And if we get advertisers, we'll get revenue. We get revenue, we can serve you better. So once again, please do support us. Please download our app. Namaskar.